discussion about mental health. A few months back, I had two wonderful people on to have a three-way discussion about our experiences with mental health and everything like cutting suicidal ideation, many of those things. And it was such an amazing show and very productive. And then I found Jesse on Twitter, and so I immediately followed him and reached out. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Do we need to retweet this or anything, or are we just gonna go for it?
You can.
I'm looking. Oh, if I just take the link you sent me, I see. Okay, yeah, let's do that.
No, you don't want to do that, because then they'll be joining our live stream.
Oh no, no, not that link. Not that link. Not that link. Not that link. Whatever, we can just go. I just wanted people to join if they're on the Twitter machine. I know there's a lot of people lonely on Twitter right now. They want to see your face and my face, and they want to connect.
Yes, I am going to post the link right now because I see some people are still in the process of joining. So this will give me a moment.
So I'm here in Kirkland, Washington. This is actually where the coronavirus touched down in the United States. I am like 3 New York City Avenue blocks away.
Holy shit.
If anybody is wondering. And yes, this is my red jacket for the Red podcast. So solidarity.
All right, here we go.
So I'm here.
Oops.
In Kirkland, Washington. This is actually where the coronavirus touched down in the United States.
Right, we're live. That's good. Share. Holy shit.
If anybody is.
All right. So I am posting this on Twitter for you guys. And so you're is your area still super bad? Or
they keep saying it's better? No, it's gotten way better. I'm really grateful to be here because the parks are not super full. People are actually doing the social distancing. We got better way fast. Like everyone was really nervous about the area at first, and now it's seems to be calmed down. But I guess the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see.
Yeah. I know I'm in Pennsylvania, and they said that we are going to be on lockdown at least until May 15th. Mm-hmm. So that's another freaking month. So we're all essentially forced agoraphobics at this point, which is why it's even better that we're talking about mental health right now, because I was actually reading an article earlier that stated that more people are depressed now than literally ever. And I mean, it makes sense. So first, do you want to share a little bit about your own experience?
With mental illness? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder after burning the candle at both ends in television production. I traveled all over the world doing documentary production with some pretty everything from like small sports to crime to embedding with Russian mobsters, sleeping on airplanes, eating fast food, doing basically all the opposite of self-care. I was just like constantly in high stress, high stakes situations. And then I got diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. I got put on meds and I got worse. And then because I got worse, they said, oh, your illness is progressing. We're going to give you more meds. So then I got worse. And then they said, oh, your illness is getting even worse. So they can get even more meds. And within 6 months, I was on literally a dozen medications for bipolar 2 disorder. And I was, my mental health was worse than it had ever been. It was certainly much worse than when I was first diagnosed. And I was just totally like physically disabled as well. So long story short, I got off of those meds and over years and years of time, and because they were not working, even after I was on 12, I tried another 2 dozen, and lower amounts and everything, and there was no getting the meds right. So eventually I found a very good psychiatrist here in Seattle, one of the best, from a referral from research scientists at Stanford University. And after working with me for a year, she said, you got to go to a naturopath. I'm not taking your money anymore. Just go see what else is going on. And slowly but surely, in doing like these whole health interventions, I started getting better a little bit at a time. And some of that was, with my own mental illness and trauma, and some of it was on the other side of it, just dealing with the side effects of all of these medications, and some of them took quite a long time to dissipate. So all in all, I was sick for about a decade and lost about a decade to this thing, but by looking outside of the box, I found things that made me better than I've ever been. So I have a project called Mental Health Media. You can check it out, mentalhealthmedia.org, where we just talk to patients and talk to clinicians about all the ways there are to get better. Because people know therapy, people know meds, but for most people, that does not do it. So I made a platform of all of the other things that don't get a lot of attention, but are still very scientifically valid.
Right, absolutely. I think, and on the topic of meds, there's so many things that can go wrong with it. Essentially, I've been there too. I've tried like this combination, that combination, and one of the biggest mistakes people make too is like, I'm feeling better, I'm going to go off of them. And then there's people who are like, these side effects are actually making it worse. It's practically impossible to find a balance with just meds.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who has succeeded in that. So that's definitely an awesome thing that you did, using that to actually explore other avenues. So since we are, kind of stuck here, and all of our mental health is at a low point, pretty much. What are some of the things that we can do, you know, to help our mindset at this time?
Well, like my whole thing is that there is no blanket advice. There is no silver bullet. There's no generalization that really works. Even in the proclamation that everybody's mental health is getting worse, that's not true for everybody. Like people who deal with like severe anxiety from, dysfunctional families and dysfunctional childhoods, a lot of us are feeling better because for the first time, there are people around us who are actually as hypervigilant as we are because nobody else is taking care of anything. So even like just the framing of the question, I appreciate, but I want to just, my whole way of thinking about this is just to, there is no couple of things that people can do. I have some ideas that might be useful for you and are useful for me, but everybody's different. I talk to patients who have been in and out of the hospital for years who now have thriving lives, relationships, and careers. Everybody does something different, but what is the same is the intentionality of living a life, of self-care. And I don't mean self-care bubble baths and getting foot massages, although that's like nothing wrong with that. I'm talking about having like actually living a disciplined life to take care of your body and your mind and heal the wounds of the past. So that said, some things, it's a decent time to learn how to meditate. If you haven't done that before, that's something we can do. It's a decent time to add some movement practice, whatever that is that works for you. It's a decent time to do that. It's people, there's a lot of things out there that say everybody should be on as many Zooms as you possibly can, and you should be writing a book right now and all. I mean, giving yourself a break is probably the biggest thing we could all do. So everybody that I talk to, all of the patients, one of the other things that they all have in common, even though they don't all do yoga, they don't all do transcendental meditation, they don't all eat the same diet, but they all have a little bit of grace for themselves. So that's another thing we could do, is just, if you didn't get out of bed today, it's okay. This is not the time to be pushing yourself like all the motivation, like the Tony Robbins of the world want you to be doing. Give yourself a little love and a little grace. You deserve it. It's a hard time for everybody right now. So the more we can kind of internalize that, I think that's another thing we could do. And lastly, people can do therapy. There's telemedicine. I do therapy that looks kind of like this conversation, and I'm able to do a lot with it. And now that we're all sitting with each other, a lot of stuff is coming up, and I'm making a lot of progress. So those are some ideas.
You do seem to you're one of the people that I notice actually almost appears like they get better by helping others. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I definitely do sense that there's, that you take something positive out of being able to help other people.
This is kind of a tricky thing because I growing up in a dysfunctional family, a lot of us become compulsive helpers, and sometimes we call that codependency, where our addiction is helping other people compulsively so we don't have to feel what we're feeling. We don't have to feel the pains that we're enduring. So we just kind of get busy. And that is something that I am recovering from. So I don't have that context of like, I'm here to help everybody. I'm here to create a community and create real relationships with people who have walked the path that I have walked and who are walking the path that I have walked. And it's a different context. So like, I'm not here to help other people. I'm here to help me with the project as much as I'm here to help anybody else. And as much as I can, like, maybe open a door or light a little bit of a fire. But for all of us who really get better, that I know, we drive our own recoveries, right? It's not like I can like help you. And even in therapy, no therapist has a magic wand and says, and does a certain technique and then now you're better. Although some trauma therapies might come similar to that. But in general, that's not the case. And you're the person that put yourself in the therapist chair. You're the person who adopts a healthy lifestyle. You're the person who decides to take on the demons of the past and have an open mind about what it takes to heal those wounds. So I want to crack the door open a little bit. And sure, when I get feedback that people are like, "Oh, I can walk this path now too," that gives me great joy. But I don't feel like I'm saving or really helping anybody. I'm just kicking the door open a little bit for the person behind me.
One of the things that my friends and I talk about a lot is that there is still so much stigma with mental health, regardless of how many more people have become open about it and how much more it's talked about. There is still so much stigma. I've worked in medical care for over a decade. I still see it. I see, and it's really incredible. I've seen, nurses make jokes about, oh, they're going to go in a white padded room and things like that. And, so if people are very, trepidatious about coming forward, what are things that we can tell them, when they're genuinely worried that they're going to be judged for coming forward?
I mean, the first thing I would say is like, people's emotions and fear is real. Like, and it's not for me or anybody else to say you should do this. I was lucky enough to be inside of a creative community. So when I came out, everybody kind of had their own story or somebody in their family. There really was, and honestly, like, I had to be disabled for a long time before my phone stopped ringing for work. So I'm lucky because in the creative field, it's a little bit more accepted, but I can only imagine that if you were working, I don't know, in certain religious communities or, healthcare probably too, that it would be a little bit harder. So I would say the first thing is don't beat yourself up if you feel like you shouldn't be scared, because there might be a very valid reason to be scared. And secondly, I would say, there's a lot. I mean, one thing that I do is curate a lot of feeds with a lot of different patients who are doing great. And I would just, if I was trepidatious, I would just kind of be around it on social media maybe and see what people are thinking and doing and looking into. But it depends. I would be cautious about it if I worked in finance or something, and that doesn't mean it should stop your recovery or keep you from going into therapy, but it might be a reason to get into therapy to talk about that exact thing, and then to work with somebody to really strategize how you can, find a context that's most empowering for your life.
Right on. I think above all, right now, the thing people are struggling with the most that I interact with, even online, is money.
Yeah.
How do you go to a therapist when you have no money, when you have no insurance, when the only person fighting for us to have those things is now not in the race anymore? Like how do we deal with that?
Well, I mean, it depends on your state by state. So Medicaid right now is Medicaid is an amazing opportunity for people to get into therapy. In Washington State, we're lucky enough to have some progressive leadership that they've like kicked open the doors for Medicaid. They're making it a lot easier to enroll. Every Medicaid, I don't know. I should back up. I don't. Please, please interject here because I think about like public health and mental health all the time. So if I speak in jargon and it's not clear, I know I had no idea what Medicaid was when I first got sick. So there's two forms of socialized medicine in the United States if you're disabled. One is Medicaid, one is Medicare. Those are two different things. Medicaid is the state one. And every state has different rules based on, their own laws. Here in Washington, we're lucky enough that they make it pretty easy. New York is also not that hard. I don't know what it is in Pennsylvania. I've helped a lot of people get on Medicaid. The first thing, if you're at home, look up how to get on Medicaid in your state. That will open the doors. Right now, Medicaid, I think for everyone, I could be wrong, is paying for Medicaid is paying for online therapy. So that's the first thing to do. There are also resources from sliding scale clinics. Some of them are very aggressive. Some of them are less aggressive. I went to an organization in San Francisco when I first was diagnosed called, oh, Jesus, I can't remember what it's, I can't remember. There's a lot of them. Every major town, like every somewhat major town, even like, some like small cities in the South still have sliding scale clinics. And they're a great way to just get in the door. The poorer the area is, the more aggressive the sliding scale will be. And some of them will allow you to see therapists for free. And then if you need emergency services, the thing that not a lot of people really even know about is that there are nonprofit hospitals that are free for poor people. Like it's like almost 100%. Every hospital has different sliding scales. But for most of them that I've seen, it's like if you make under 60K, you can go for any services there for free. So it's another thing. If you are not, if you're a worker or disabled or former worker, whatever, if you're a person with not a lot of money, look into the sliding scale clinics, look into the nonprofit hospitals. The buzzword, the Google searchable word for the nonprofit hospitals is charity care. And it sounds like you should be and you do not have to be under the poverty. It sounds like you should have to be under the poverty level, the poverty line to do that. You don't. It's like usually 60, 70K. And then even if you make up to 100, I know like one of the hospitals here, like it's still like 50% reduced. Like it's like they get out of paying taxes by having these sliding scales. So there's like, it is frustrating. And we see on social media, somebody coming home with a bill from a healthcare provider or the hospital for like $20,000. And then people say, oh, well, I can't go to the hospital now. There's a lot of nuance there. And I get like having to use that for, political reasons. At the same time, the system is workable. It is way too hard, and it's tragic how hard it is, but it's possible. So keep digging, because you'll find stuff. I mean, I ran out of money. I was a TV producer, but I mean, in New York City, at 30 years old, you get sick, so you can't work anymore, and you're still paying for New York City rent. Like, it doesn't last that long. So I had to everything I did with almost like very, very little money.
Absolutely. So off of your website, and it is, let's see, mentalhealthmedia.org. I watched your main video, and you said that depression is the #1 cause of disability
Worldwide. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can definitely believe that. What do you think that statement says?
What does that statement say? There's a lot of things that statement says. We're a stressed out society, this current civilization is not designed for our social or biological needs, is what I would say. And we are also a civilization that thrives on the denial of past traumas for lots of different types of people. And then you have to work so much, and then also, like, the nuclear family of first world countries is like, I think there might be better ways to to raise children so they're not alone so much. I don't know.
Yeah. You also stated someone takes their life every 13 minutes.
Yeah, those are, I forget who, I don't know exactly which statistic is which, but yeah, those are all, I don't know if they're footnoted on there, but you can look that up. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people don't realize how bad the problem is. Like, you should not feel alone. There's so many people who are suffering right now. And that's more reason to get help, because there's also people getting better. But the problem is real, and it's not like a personal failure. We have a stressed out society right now, and we just got to do everything that we can for each other and for ourselves to get better. And I think we can, especially when I grew up in politically very radical circles. I did a lot of activist work. I hear very often, well, until we have a revolution, nothing's really going to change. And while I still absolutely think we should fight for that kind of progress that we wish to see, there are very real things that you can do to make a really big difference in your life and your community's world. So despair is not, it's easy to get despair from a statistic like that, but that's not the intention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Crystal. You are amazing. So yeah, I mean, a lot of our viewers are understanding this, and I think it's so important that, things like this are discussed. So you made an interesting point on your video. You said, despite more and more people being treated, we're also seeing more and more people suffering, which implies our treatments aren't adequate.
I was trying to be polite.
You don't have to be polite on my show.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's more and more people are getting treated with meds and traditional talk therapy, and the people are just getting worse on a global scale. So if we look at any kind of medical revolution, I mean that totally not politically, but like if you look at insulin for diabetes, like way and way less people die of diabetes, right? Like there's something that works. When it comes to mental illness, when there's a breakthrough in mental illness in the pharma side, doesn't really shift. The needle does not move. So I want the needle to move. And the thing is that there's so many things that work that we're not using. Like if you know where to look and you can even get Medicaid to pay for a lot of this stuff, depending on the state, right? I'm not going to say, I don't know what the rules are in Alabama.
Yeah, it really depends if they have the Medicaid expansion, because I'm married, and even while I wait on my disability paperwork for losing my eyesight, my husband, they look at his income, which is not a fucking lot, but so that makes me ineligible. It really depends on the state.
Yeah,
But
you need a lawyer. Get a
what's that?
lawyer. Get a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of us are painfully aware of that.
But people, I wasn't. It took me going to the mental hospital and like being in the mental hospital, San Francisco General, with someone who had HIV/AIDS for like 20 years, and he helped me and my family like just with the basics of how this stuff works. I'm working on a podcast right now. It's going to be the next thing that I work on, and it's just an info dump of everything I know about how to get started with mental health care if money is tight for you. And so people don't really know that you need a lawyer to get on SSDI and then SSI, social security, disability income, and then social security. I don't know if it's interesting to talk about this stuff, but people can
I'm
let us
going
know.
through it.
Okay, Chris.
I'm literally going through it.
So Christina T says a lawyer equals money and sad. So no, a lawyer should not take money from you, Christina. A lawyer for disability will so the first, how it works. We have somebody to talk to us. I guess it's somewhat interesting. Christina, so what happens? The way to do is just apply for your SSI. And first I should say, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm just a patient. Anything I say on this podcast is not advice. It's not legal advice. It's not mental health care. It's nothing. I'm just talking to you as a mental health disability comrade from one to another. A lawyer will not take your money. The first thing you do for SSI is you apply for SSI, you get denied. A lawyer won't even talk to you until you get that first denial, if they're decent. Then, after you get that first denial, a lawyer will help you put all of your paperwork together. They will call your doctors. They will make it so you don't have to do anything. And they take, how it works is you have your SSDI that you paid into if you have been working. They'll take like a third of that lump sum if you win, when you win your case. And then you get your full monthly SSDI until it runs out. But they shouldn't take money up front. And as far as I know, that's just how the system goes. Unless you know a lawyer in your family, you probably have to do that, just how it is. Good, bad, and different. But you won't put money out. You shouldn't put money out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy because through this process, I was told that 3 out of 4 people who apply for disability get denied the first time.
Sure.
And it's like, I can't fucking see,
Yeah.
but like, sorry, denied. So I'm going through the appeal process, and I never thought I'd be doing this so young. So my heart goes out to anyone who's dealing with this process. It's not easy. So last night, I'm sorry.
Oh, so we got a comment here. Steven says the lawyer charged me $550 to file my disability after 2 failed attempts by me. Number 1, don't file 2. Number 2, I find another lawyer. So Christina T is asking how they final. I'm sorry. Is this okay? Can we talk to you?
Absolutely.
So a decent disability lawyer should not take money. They should not take $550 for you. I'm sure there's sketchy people out there. If you look up, you just call people. I don't know. I'm going to put together a list on how to do this, but it might take me a few weeks with some like contacts to at least get you in the right field of people who really know how to do this. And then Christina asks, how do they finally get paid? A disability lawyer will get paid when you win. And when you win, they take a percentage of the lump sum that is determined on how long you have been disabled. So if you've been disabled for, say, 3 years, they will take, in general, the standard rate is 1/3 of that 3-year lump sum. If you've been working for like 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, whatever it is, you probably have more money than that paid into SSDI. but they get paid they take that lump sum, and it sucks because that's your money and you shouldn't have to do that, but that's just the system, and at least you're getting what you need. And so from what I understand, the standard rate is about $2,400 for the SSDI, depending on how disabled you are. There might be more calculations, and then SSI ranges for people, but like it maxes out at $1,200, and then you can file more paperwork on top of that to get about another $150, $130. There are other factors, but in general, that's the kind of money you're looking at.
Yeah, the lawyer I just signed on, he basically, disability is retroactive. So they're going back to the day that I literally became legally blind. And he's going to be taking 25% of anything that I hopefully will ever get. Who knows if that'll ever happen. But yeah, so that is good. They don't charge you up front. So yeah, don't let that impede you from applying. So let's see. Thank you, Michael. Crystal said finding a good therapist is like, that is difficult. That is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
You're so lucky to have a good one, Jesse. I am just not lucky in that department. Funny story. It's funny now. My first therapist, I was 18. This was 23 years ago. And I went to him every single Sunday every single Monday, and he never billed me. And it was weird because I never got any EOBs. Well, I went to him a little over a year, and I saw in the newspaper he was arrested because he totally wasn't a doctor. He was actually
no. Wow, that's one of the best bad therapist stories I've ever heard. And I hear them all the time.
I'm not even kidding you. That was my first therapist.
Oh, I'm interested in this. Oh, I want to hear all about this. This is like this American Life episode. So how was the therapy?
Well, I honestly had nothing to compare it to. I mean, the dude was fucking weird. Like, did you ever read Running with Scissors? Like he was like that guy, like, yeah, I don't know, like he was just very eccentric. And yeah, like it was just like I went one day, it was closed, and then I saw in the newspaper he was in jail.
That's a good story. That's a very good story.
I haven't even talked about that in years. I don't even know why I brought that up.
There's a lot of threads on my Twitter feed. Every so often, we just need to talk about all the bad therapist stories. I really think it's about 1 in 5. I think is like decent, really. But that said, there are ways to to ask for recommendations and find people that not only like meet your needs, but like also your insurance needs. So there's good people out there, especially like there's a new generation of young therapists that I think are changing the game right now. So yeah, and you can find them on my Twitter feed at Zook Mann, ZOOKMANN. That's what we do every day.
I mean, this is funny. Not everyone would think this is funny, but I have a good sense of humor, and it takes a lot to offend me. But my last therapist, he was more of a counselor, I really genuinely liked him, but he called me the one day and canceled our appointment because he said he was having sexual attraction to me and it was unprofessional. So I was like, well, first he said, I can't help you. And I'm like, oh my God, I am damaged goods. Like, I am damaged goods. He can't help me. That was fucking weird.
It wasn't oddly validating? A little bit?
Well, at least he thinks I'm cute. I'm not an unfixable, but hey. Yeah, that was fucking weird. Yeah, I've actually, my husband doesn't even know about that, so I hope he's not watching. But yeah, I've had some experiences. I only like talking to men. I don't do, like, people have like their preferences. I only like talking to people my age or younger. So it's good now with the internet that you can actually search, who you like, lack of a better term, the kind of person you'd like.
Mhm.
So what makes a good therapist? Like, why do you connect to yours?
Well, it's like more of an esoteric question than I think. I think at the basis of therapy, you're providing a space and a ritual for people to be able to feel their own feelings and process their own emotional states. And that doesn't even necessarily have to be a therapist. And I will repeat again, I am not a mental health care professional, and I do not have insurance to be a mental health care professional. But that said, anyone who allows you to really be with yourself and process your own emotions and reflect and provide a space of support and kindness, I think like that is the basis of therapy. It's not always about learning a certain technique or a certain context. It's not Tony Robbins, it's real. I mean, that's what people kind of expect a lot of times in the society. A therapist can be a yoga teacher. A therapist can be a jujitsu instructor. A therapist can be a coach. But that said, there are people who are better listeners than others. There are people who are just better attuned and know more and research more and open more books. That said, there are people who also connect with different types of therapy than others, depending on your background. If you're a person who experienced a lot of childhood adversity or even trauma in your adult years, there are different trauma therapies you might want to look at that might work a lot better for you. So the type of therapy might have something to do with it as well. If you're a person that has a terrible experience with therapists, right? Like someone who has been abused in therapy, it happens. It's real. Someone who has a psychology degree, who's a yoga, instructor, or someone who like really knows what they're doing with like trauma work in yoga, that exists too. That might be the place for you. So it's not all about the skill, but skill is part of it. It might be the methodology is part of it. Personality is part of it. And then the stuff you're talking about, age and gender. And then for everybody, in this society who deals with acute trauma because of like what they look like or who they are, race, gender, sex, so on and so forth. It can be very affirming to have somebody who really understands your struggle with those kinds of discriminations. And if they don't, it can be really hard. And not to put myself in anybody else's shoes or compare or contrast anything, but just being a Jew in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle in whitey white world, I realized how real even just kind of casual anti-Semitism is, because I feel like an outsider here. I wave my hands a lot and I get, somewhat tan in August, and the people here are so white. They're like, oh, I'm about to get mud. Like people lock up. I'd never seen anything like this. In Queens, like I'm the most normal white guy on the block. Like standard, right? In Seattle, it's less so. So like having just a Jewish therapist who are like, oh yeah, I see, that's no big, that's a little, yeah, that's annoying. And I'm like, oh, I think I can relax. Like you see that experience, you can feel that. And there are people who are discriminated more acutely on a day-to-day basis, much, much more aggressively than me. So you can only imagine if you're a black person with a white therapist who doesn't really believe, has an attitude about microaggressions or has an attitude about, why don't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and just can't like allow you to process the pain of being othered in the society. That's a problem. So all those things, if you are gender nonconforming, it might help to have a gender nonconforming therapist. If you're Latino, it might help to have a Latino therapist. If not that it's necessary, but that might help. Or just having a really good therapist of whatever, however they grew up, or whatever background, who can really see the humanity in another person, regardless. And that's not everybody, right? Like, even if they're a therapist, that's not everybody. Can exist though, right? I did a podcast with Amade. She goes by Depressed While Black on Twitter, and we had a whole conversation about this. It's really cool.
Those are really great points. Let me see what else I had. I had EMDR down. Do you want to kind of explain what that is to people who may not be familiar?
I'm dyslexic, so I'm like really bad at acronyms. So it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a type of trauma therapy where it's for people that have had either acute trauma or also just like childhood adversity. If you're just like, oh, I don't know, my mom was weird, or my dad wasn't around, or my mom got arrested, my dad got arrested. You just have like some kind of thing like that, and you're like, yeah, I think something happened in my childhood, but I'm okay. EMDR might be a good idea. Or if you survived an attack, assault, whatever, some kind of acute trauma that you are like aware of as an adult, EMDR can also be really good. And it's debated exactly what the mechanism of action is for EMDR, but I can tell you how it works is like you go into the therapist. You find like some kind of event that was triggering in the last week, and they ask you to place it in your body and then rate it on a scale of how intense it is, like that negative feeling. Like, say, like, okay, somebody cut me off in traffic, and I had a panic attack, and it's all in my hands and in my chest, and I'm going to rate that an 8 out of 10 when I think about it. So you do that, and then they ask you, well, what did you make up about yourself? What was the story? What was the conversation? What was the narrative? I made up that, all people who drive Toyotas want to kill me. So, and then you say that, and then you go into it, and they have a light bar, and there's a green dot, and goes, the one I do. Sometimes people do it with their fingers, but it's like kind of a hypnosis. I don't know. That part is debated. But you look at that and you think about that like intense sensation, and there's almost like a lot of people, including myself, will report like almost like a psychedelic kind of experience. For me, like I go into the event and I see like these white wire frames. It's all in totally 3-dimensionality. It's really wild. And then you do that, and then you say, okay, what did you see? You say, okay, that was there, blah, blah, blah. And then it starts transforming to all of these other things that like happened in your life. And you see through all of these different, I don't know, for lack of a better word, visions, how all of these traumas are connected. So for me, I realized like just how crappy I dealt. There were a lot of crappy things that I dealt with just a violent and sketchy people as a child, even though there wasn't like, I dealt with like real intense abuse and harassment in school, but I didn't get just how like especially early in my career, even just like sexual harassment stuff really affected me. I just blew it off. I'm like, they're just a creepy old guy, whatever, I could blow it off. And just like all of these little things. And that's when I really, for myself, got microaggressions. I'm like, man, like I don't deal with it that much. But early in my career, I dealt with a lot of like sketchy older guys who were like, oh, let's get this 18-year-old guy. Let me try to get the, like just that kind of stuff. And it was a lot of it. In show business, there's a lot of it. I'm like, wow, okay, that's why I'm so stressed out in traffic. And that's why I don't like people who drive Toyotas.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I don't think we acknowledge the way things, correlate sometimes. Something I totally forget what it is, but something a therapist tried with me in the past is they would tap certain pressure points.
Yeah, it's tapping. It's very similar to EMDR.
Right, right. Is that something that you've tried that you like, or?
I would totally be into it. I mean, I do. So everybody has their own stuff, right? So it's like I try not to get lost in trying everything. Although, like doing what I'm doing, it's interesting. It's like very interesting. But like, so what you're talking about is tapping. It's also called EFT, emotional freedom
Yes,
technique,
right.
and it's kind of like EMDR that you do on yourself, which I guess would be good because it's cheap, right? The thing that I do for myself is transcendental meditation, and this is another thing that is expensive if you pay full price. But if you're a disabled, low income person, you can get a deep discount. I applied for a scholarship with the David Lynch Foundation when I was especially poor, and they gave me a really deep. It's like $1,000 class that I got for like price of like Taco Bell for 2 people. So and that's something I do for myself. So I have my own thing that I can do myself, and that's also something that's really important in recovery. For some people, that's definitely yoga. For some people, that's EFT. You know, everybody that I talk to has some kind of ritual that allows them to process their emotions in by themselves without any kind of other person, and that puts therapy on the acceleration, you know, on the nitro. It's like hitting the nitro. You go through you know, because you can just process more. You can process your own day and the past by yourself. So there's a lot of things that I go in, I'm like, oh, I'm at EMDR, I really need to talk to, or I need to do EMDR about this thing or that thing, and then I just meditate on it, and then by the next week, 2 weeks, I'm like, yeah, I think I kind of saw what that was about, and I processed it, and it's not really bothering me anymore. And it can be quite profound.
Christina has a question that I was kind of wondering about as well. It's kind of unconventional and maybe a bit awkward, but Christina wants to know if we could do something like it now.
I saw another one of her questions that I want to get to first. Because she asked, like, so Medicaid does cover EMDR. Yes, at least in Washington. There's not a lot of people who do it, but there are kind people who are like, you don't have to take Medicaid, right? Like therapists only take Medicaid if they want to help poor people. And it's like annoying billing, and they don't get as much money, but there's a lot of like, some therapists are really good people, and they love people, and they want to help poor people. So like they do take Medicaid, but every town is going to be different. But yes, if you go on psychologytoday.com, look up a therapist, you can click the Medicaid button, and then you can search for EMDR, and you can see who takes Medicaid or Medicare if you're applying for Medicare or if you already receive it. Can we do it right now? No, because I'm not qualified. I said this twice already. We cannot do anything.
Do it. You intrigue people. Don't take offense.
Okay, well, I'm gonna give you the name of a young therapist who is amazing, who will do that with you, and he is a doctor, and his name is Dr. Broderick. On my live stream last week, we did a guided meditation with Dr. Broderick, and he is great. Here, I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna find Dr. Broderick's Twitter handle. He can do that if he wants to hang out with you. He's a very social justice guy. We talked a little bit about the social justice. He is Broderick A88 on the Twitter machine, and we did a guided meditation. He is a mindfulness teacher, a PhD, and a clinical psychologist, and he can do that. I cannot do that. Not yet. I got to go to school. I need some time and some student loans. So,
well, do you want to do like a meditation?
So the meditation I do is like, so like your comrades are not going to appreciate this, but it's like copyrighted, and like you can't do it. I mean, we could do like some breathing, but yeah, I can't like teach
do
meditation.
Breathing with us.
We can do breathing. Do you, how about you? Do you know how to teach meditation? I don't know how to teach meditation.
No.
Yes, no one. I don't think. No, I don't think. Dr. Broderick.
Here's what they want.
Yeah, well, go to Dr. Broderick. Everybody wants the quick fix right away. Check out Dr. Broderick. We're working actually on a meditate. I have a meeting with him tomorrow, and we're gonna make a meditation, like the 3-stage guided meditation, mindfulness meditation, and we're gonna record it for free, copyright free. Put it on YouTube. Put it
Nice.
whatever you want to do. You want to upload it to archive.org, email to everybody. We're going to make an MP3 file with the 3 guided meditations. And it's not Headspace. It's not some corporate thing. It's a doctor with a social justice background who does amazing work in the African-American community and getting people into therapy. And he's going to do a guided meditation, no copyright. And no strings attached. It's not Headspace. It's not some like, and it's a doctor. It's not like just some like tech guy at Headspace like that. Who wants a meditation from like a tech founder? Like get a doctor who's all about loving people. Dr. Broderick is all about loving people and empowering the community. So check out Dr. Broderick. You can check out my feed. It's not on the website yet, but if on Twitter, it was last week. So if you just scroll down, there's a Dr. Broderick guided meditation, and we're going to get that up. So if you go to mentalhealthmedia.org, join the email list, I will notify you when that is up. That's one of the next 2 things. We're doing the free meditation resource guide, and then we're doing how to get started on social services, just everything I know, and some resources to get to the next place.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jesse. Is there something else, like anything you would want to leave our viewers with?
I would say just don't give up. I thought I was out of options because I had tried like 3 dozen psych meds, and talk therapy. There's so much more to try, and the system sucks, but it's possible. It will not be good if Trump is reelected, and I know we could probably have a contentious debate about this, but I would say it's possible. There's more possible than you think. A lot of people, it takes a fight. It's a struggle, but that's what this recovery world is about. It's a fight. It's a struggle, and there are resources possible. The few things that I talked about can take a long time to figure out. So go to mentalhealthmedia.org. I'll post I'll email people when both of those things are available. I'll also post it on Twitter and all of my socials, and it'll be on mentalhealthmedia.org. It might be a month or 6 weeks or so until all those things. That's what I got. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you doing this. If there's any, I don't know, if there's anything I can do for your own, or if you just want to talk shop on your own disability applications, happy to do that. Sorry you're going through that. That sounds rough.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not great, but my show is such an amazing outlet, and you see how amazing our viewers are. So thank you all so much for watching as usual. Let's see. Okay, so yes, I see your comments about the Bernie poster not being there. I see it. I know it's been there for 3 years. I know. I'm hurt. My tattoo's still on my arm. I'm hurt. It may go back up. I still love him. He's still my hero, but I'm hurt. So I'm grieving. So it's not
like Shiva. You got to like take all the, what is it? Oh no, that's the mirrors. I know they have pictures when you're sitting Shiva. I guess you have pictures.
Yeah.
No
yeah, so
mirrors.
it's here. It's not in the garbage. Like, it's here. But in any case, so I'm so fucking excited. One of my favorite writers ever, Nathan J. Robinson, who is current affairs and just like a badass burner and activist. He will be joining me Monday night. And then I'll be having Laura Ashcraft back on Tuesday. She is running in New York, and she is getting signatures so that they can keep Bernie on the ballot in New York. So lots of great show. Oh, and Mike asked me back on the Humanist Report. So I'll be going back there. So thank you guys so much for watching. And thank you again, Jesse. I'm so glad that you said yes.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. What else am I going to say? Of course. Anytime. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.